Reagan, childcare is an issue. So
Childcare is an issue, and I sympathize strongly.
yeah,
I do question about the need for more caucuses because those are all informal. Here's this gets back to the legislative staffing issue. None of these caucuses are staffed by actual staff caucus. It's all like shared budgets between members and stuff like that, which I think is okay. It's just I think people have this perception that the BIPOC caucus and the Coastal Caucus all have this like extra staff. It's like whatever outside groups want to supply plus whatever members have money to put into a position for that, or like they put their L2s in there or whatever. Like it's not a big, it's mostly just a way of, it's like in Congress, they have the Main Street Caucus and all these other things that they use to assert political power.
Yeah, no, I think, the Coastal Caucus, which my boss is part of, like it's basically whoever the chair is has to do all the work and their staff. So when Gomberg was the Coastal Caucus chair, I guess he is until the end of this month. But, Luke had to do all the work. Friend of the pod, been on the podcast. But the Child Care Caucus, it's a great group, and childcare is just a huge, huge issue, as you are very well aware of. With 3 kids of your own, I mean the cost of sending kids to childcare is the number one cost now in the country. Like if you have more than 2 kids and you're paying for childcare, like it's insanely expensive. I mean, we're talking like if you had 3 kids and you had to pay for childcare and they're all under 5 or whatever and not going to full-time school. I mean, what is it? What, $5,000 a month?
It's a lot. It is a lot.
A ton. And I just think it's a huge, but the answer, and this is what we're trying to work into. We actually have a committee bill. We're going to work on liability issues within childcare facilities because that's one of their most expenses, or most rising expenses, like recreational immunity. So we want to do some liability immunity for these. Because if you're a facility that is doing everything right, you shouldn't be sued because you're one of the kids went too long without having their diaper changed or something, right? It's got to be, you got to protect yourself from these ambulance chasing stupid lawyers that reside out there and sue over anything.
And again, a lot of people think that this liability is like, well, what if they're just, out there and they're doing everything wrong and they're grossly negligent? I'm like, usually this protection on liability does include, if you have somebody who's grossly negligent, who's intentionally malicious, all that stuff is never included in that. They're never protected from liability for acting inappropriately. It's when you do everything right, you check all the boxes, you train your staff, and something still goes wrong because you can't control everything. You just can't. And there has to be a place where that liability, you are shielded from liability after doing everything right, because there's nothing more you could do.
It kind of raises the bar of what, an attorney looks at to say what's a winnable case. So it raises that bar so insurance companies aren't just settling every time they're brought in a case or something like that. The insurance company is always just going to settle the case. So what these liability protections do, or these immunities, they just kind of raise that bar. Like you have to have a better case than just, you fell over skiing. Because that's the problem with skiing. I mean, I think I put that, you see like that recreational liability we got to have. Mount Bachelor, $224 for a lift ticket, Reagan. Can you believe that? That is insane. The cost. So a family of 4, they're going to spend $800 plus food to go skiing for a day. That's just stupid.
And I think like a lot of this recreation, I think was maybe perceived as something that wealthier people did, but I think a lot of people, low and middle income, were able to do it and probably aren't able to now. And that's really going to change. I mean, that's just going to cause them to have to really jack prices in order to stay in business, essentially, and operate. And I'm sure they've already done a lot of operations reductions. I think basically what you've seen is that that the business community doesn't run or have a significant input in policy anymore. I mean, they get to give input, but the outcomes aren't very business friendly, very business driven. And I mean, that's been talked to death and they had the Oregon Business Summit. Did you go to the Oregon Business Summit, or do
Yeah.
you just
Yeah, I was
yeah?
there. Look at
So
me.
and that was the discussion. But you have had all these other types of groups. You've had social issue nonprofits, like homelessness nonprofits, all these other things. You've had environmental lobby, you've had trial lawyer lobby, you've had public sector unions, you have all of these different groups that have run policy for 10, 20 years. And so now you're seeing the outcomes of having policy tip too far in the direction of one of non-business. You have to have some balance there with the average working person, and the balance for business community, and balance for local government, stuff like that. And we just haven't had enough of that balance take place. And so now these are kind of the outcomes that you would expect from going too far in one direction for trial lawyers, too far in one direction for land use and all that stuff. And I think that the goal, it shouldn't be balancing right and left necessarily, but it does need to balance all of the different represented organizations and groups and groups of people out there that haven't been listened to.
Yeah. And look at this. I was reading an Oregon Live article. So Timberline is going to $170 for an adult all day pass. I mean, these are on peak days, but I mean, that's when everybody wants to go. Mount Hood Meadows, $169. These are like 17, 14% increases. And it's just truly insane. So even season pass at Mount Bachelor, 1,500. Like it's just, you're not. And the worst part about the article is we had a bill, made it through the House, got it into the Senate, and Mark Meek killed it in Finance and Revenue Committee. And that the Democrats killed the bill for the trial lawyers. And that is a shame. That trial lawyers and these kind of horrible things are just killing our state with these anything they can to sue, anything they can to make happen. It just feels like, they're just destroying us, and it's not helping at all. And I know they're making a run at it again and in the short session. Hopefully some of the highlights of this article, I mean, the cost of $224 a ticket, hopefully that gets to people. I think there's fixes to it, but you're right. The insurance companies, whether it's wildfire, recreational immunity, childcare, I mean, what's happening is there's nobody to insure it. Like at some point, an insurance company just says, I don't want to do that line of business because it just doesn't make any sense. And then they're leaving states like Oregon for multiple reasons, right? But the one thing we can't do with childcare, just to wrap that thing up in a bow, is the answer to lowering childcare cost is not making it like childcare for all in Portland. That is a train wreck. So that's not the answer. The answer is not to create more government childcare like New Mexico's doing the childcare for all thing for the whole state. And then all they're doing is just taxing businesses. I think what needs to happen ultimately with childcare is we need to go back to a public-private partnership model that the state puts whatever protections they can into place, whatever things, and then we need to take it to the counties that work with their school districts, because I believe that the grade schools, we have grade schools where you got no kids in them because they're all leaving. They already pass all of the restrictions you need for young people. For the toddler toilets and all that sort of stuff you got to have. So you take a county, you take your employers in those counties, and you work together and you have their school district to say, can you guys set apart a classroom, lease it to a childcare provider of some kind? They could provide childcare. You could do summertime, you could do all the things, and now you have an elementary school in communities that could actually make something happen with a public-private partnership. So that's what I believe has to happen. You have to get it out of a statewide mandate of some things. We could help with the rules and the things like that, insurance liability and some of the facility requirements. But our school districts, I think it's a good opportunity for them to make a little bit of money, them to be part of the community, the counties to get engaged in it, and then the local employers to quote unquote help offset the cost of slots, or what have you within that facility. And I think there's some opportunity for it. So That would be my suggestion. I just don't know quite how to put all the pieces together yet.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that that makes the most sense because I mean, I do think that also a lot of businesses would offer it either partnering together with other businesses to create childcare near where their offices are,
Yeah.
or in their offices if they have open space in their buildings or space available to lease nearby. But we can't, as the state right now, the policy is going to be on the budget side not to do any kind of incentives because we can't, quote unquote, lose any quote unquote revenue, which is really just
Yeah.
tax money. So they won't be doing incentives to keep businesses going. And a lot of the, I mean, there was I was interested in the OBI board of directors. I don't know if we talked about this yet. They issued an emergency, a business emergency. Did you see this?
Mm,
So they kind of
no.
did like an executive order, like the governor did. I'll see if I can find it real quick. But it was
Oh, yeah,
obviously
where they
just
said if she's
their board
serious
of
about stuff.
directors.
Yeah.
And so, but one of the things they said was first is that they would like public officials to acknowledge that the we're not in a great space economically. And of course, not hard for Democrats to do because they're going to blame Trump for the economy. So they're like, "Yeah, Trump's terrible. The economy's really bad." So we crossed that one. The second, I think, the second one they had on that list, which I thought was interesting, was "Do no more harm," which is
Yeah.
hilarious because like we have to remind them, like, actually, don't hurt us anymore. That's just going to make things worse. Please stop. And meanwhile, you've got, I'm sure there will be like 20 bills at least introduced in the short session that businesses are just going to like just absolutely hate and are going to make their costs go through the roof and increase the amount of paperwork they have to do and all that. So I don't know that we'll necessarily succeed on that front. And then it's about starting with retaining current businesses before trying to get businesses back, right?
Yeah.
And so I think as part of that retaining, workforce and housing seem to be top issues for businesses in terms of needing a qualified, well-trained workforce and needing housing. And we don't want to build housing, so we're probably not going to solve that issue. Unfortunately, there's a handful of folks that want to build it, but everybody else wants to, make sure that all the people who currently own land are the only people who are allowed to own land, and the currently zoning of the land is the only use of that land ever for eternity. But yeah, it's so workforce, right? And I think workforce has a lot to do with childcare. I think there's a lot of qualified people that either exited the workforce recently, kind of
Yeah.
during COVID, or are prepared to enter or change jobs in the workforce to something they're qualified for, but they need childcare available. And if they can't get that childcare, they're not going to change whatever their current situation is.
And I'm not going to use the term affordable because I'm really starting to hate that term. Uh, it needs to be at a level which it makes sense for me to go to work and not stay home and take care of my kids, right? So I think you have to have and I don't know what,
Correct.
that number is going to be different for everybody, clearly, right? I mean, if you're going to go wait tables somewhere, right, that number needs to be, I'm not going to spend more than $500 a month because it isn't, I'm not making
Right.
that. So, but that should be relative to a town size, right? You're going to get to smaller communities on the coast or in rural Oregon where you should have some more of these, under 20 person, five, seven people inside their house helping out, doing stuff like that. And then you maybe have the one facility in the elementary school that has, 30, 40 kids in it or something like that. And those are, if we could somehow offset that, and if we give employers incentives, i.e., tax credits or other things to deploy, if they're a part of this public-private partnership, that's just going to help the workforce because OBI is completely right with their. I'm looking at their letter now that they put out, and I love that they said they could start with, rescinding the three bills that Democrats passed in the long session that basically destroy business and unemployment insurance benefits to striking workers, prevailing wage that applies to manufacturing, which is crazy. And then, of course, makes contractors responsible for the behavior of subcontractors. And I thought that was a really good thing. Like, hey, what if you're really serious? Why don't you just start with cutting these three things that you guys just did to really make life a lot harder for business in Oregon? And I thought that was a good take on it. You totally can't go out there and start waving your flag by saying Oregon's open for business, move here without taking care of who's here first. I think that's really important. And the difference of that Oregon business plan, I thought that was very interesting, is the beginning, they were just like they did this TV ad or there was like a video, right? And it like you could have just put, vote Republican at the end of the ad and you would have thought it was a Republican commercial for OBC because it was just like boom, 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 boom. And then the governor came and she talked about the prosperity plan, which is it's just nothing but a bunch of mumbo jumbo, cut red tape bullshit stuff that literally is all the stuff that they put into place. So it's kind of disingenuous. And I think what I liked about what OBI put out, it's like, hey, why don't you first go back and just resend some of the things that you just did to make it more red tape, to make it harder to do business in Oregon, if you really genuinely want to help save Oregon. And then, and there was some buzzwords there at that event about, oh, let's instead of the 46, I say we should be in the top 10. And like the only way to get to the top 10 is to get rid of all of this other crap. So I just don't think they'll get there.
I think, and we facetiously in the maybe we'll call it the Republican staff corps, always refer to the Oregon Business Summit, where they always have, they have the Republican leaders, but they kind of have the Republican leaders just because, right? They're not in charge, haven't been in charge in the last couple decades. So they always have also like a U.S. senator, and they always have the governor, and they always have the Democratic leaders. So we just call it the "Please Don't Hurt Me" convention. Because that's what it is they have all these Democrats and they say such nice things about all of the 3 to 5 pretend business initiatives they do every year to pretend to be pro business, and then they also like try to really gently remind them like, hey, did you know that like the business community matters in this state and we need to do everything to help them, and all those Democrats say yes, of course, yes, we're very pro business, except if it's business versus the environment, like, unless it's business versus the trade unions, unless it's business versus the public sector unions, unless it's business versus the Democrat social issues. So yeah, no, we're totally pro business. Business is like, 10th on our list of most important things that we will do. Yeah. Absolutely. And if there's anything, and just bring us any bills that have no opposition and we will pass them for you, right? That's all they'll do at the end of the day when push comes to shove. And so that's one of the things that, obviously is very frustrating for Republicans, is seeing a lot of these business owners fall for the bait again of trying to go in with Democrats to fix the business climate that was created by Democrats. When I'll believe that Democrats actually want to fix the business issues is when Tina Kotek doesn't just put forward an initiative that says she wants to be pro-business, but she does what some of these other governors are doing, like Shapiro in Pennsylvania and even in Washington with Ferguson, executive orders saying permits have a maximum number of days before they need to go through, just like general business licensing and basic. I know some of that stuff is at the Secretary of State's office, and a lot of that stuff is pretty quick. But anything that the governor can do to reduce regulations for businesses, a lot of it can be done with executive orders. But what is she writing executive orders about? Not business stuff. She's writing them. She's writing them for the environmental group. She's writing them to ensure that that prevailing wage is applied to just anything that touches any bit of government money. I mean, shoot, we're basically to the point where if the government has to approve your permit, you're just prevailed because the government touched that project, and it's just like and I mean, write all the worthless FAQs you want. That doesn't change how the law is going to get applied by the labor commissioner. Yeah. And yes, it is the labor commissioner. Okay. Business it's not even in her wheelhouse. I'm not sure she knows. Business is the enemy for them. Yep. And at the end of the day,
and she's corrupt. She's corrupt. She's corrupt as all get out. Bully commission, corruption beyond all corruption. Go read any of Nigel Jacquis's articles about the amount of money she takes from big unions and stuff, and all of the stuff she's ruling on. We don't need to go there, but yes, you're right.
The investment's paying off. I mean, 100%. The investment on the unions is paying off big time for them until they realize that you can't prevail a dead project. So that's the biggest problem is now they're going to have to pass mandates requiring businesses to build these projects because they won't get built otherwise. And they're going to run into all kinds of problems on this front. And so I think what's really unfortunate is to watch all the pain start to occur and Democrats start to wiggle a little bit and be like, oh, we may have gone too far, but they don't have the courage yet to tell some of their interest groups no. And so we're going to have to
Yep.
watch the pain get a whole lot worse before they're willing to fix it. And then once you start the fixes, it's going to take years to recover from the damage that was done. And
Years, maybe
meanwhile,
decades.
maybe decades, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, it has been decades and decades of damage. I think. I think it's just accelerating now and hitting this point where now the businesses are like, okay, enough is enough. We can't do this anymore. We're moving on. We're
Yeah.
not going to expand. We're closing. I mean, I just heard of a guy from our church who works for, I guess, an auto repair chain that they're closing a shop in Eugene, and Eugene isn't a small town; it's a big town. And so, if they can't make the economics of their business work in some of these bigger areas, we're going to start hitting a point where they aren't going to be making the economics of the business work at all. It's just not going to happen. And so these
Yeah.
guys are going to start closing up, and we're going to see a recession.
Well, or we're going to see maybe what like regional recessions, right? Where other states that are like
Yeah,
Arizona and Texas, they talked about how those guys are just they're just gobbling up people and they're gobbling up businesses because they're pro friendly states to not only just businesses but just people. You know, they're friendly to how, you know, to construction and housing and all of those sort of things. So at the end of the day, when you see a recovery or you see things happening, well, if I can buy a house for X in Texas and it's, and people go, well, at some point I'm just going to move there because I can get twice the house for the same money. And I'll find a job because all the companies are there, you know.
and
And
Texas isn't going to fill up quickly. It's a big state. They can keep
pretty big
adding
state.
people. They can keep adding businesses. They can keep building roads
Yeah.
and building
And
energy and
turns
all that
out
stuff. They'll
And
drill
turns
their own
out,
oil.
congressionally speaking, they redistrict every 10 years and then they'll just gain more congressional power. And then Oregon just keeps getting worse, right? And I think what really, if you get to the heart of it, Hoffman Construction was there and the CEO talked for a little bit. I think he said they're the state's largest private employer. I'm I'm pretty sure. I'll check that, but I'm pretty sure he said that. He said that 10 years ago, 70 or 10 or 15 years ago, 70% of all of their projects were in Oregon. Today,
Yep.
it's less than 10.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Huge problem. Nobody's building downtown. There's no cranes downtown. There's no building happen. Portland's in a doom loop. There's just no desire, right, to build anywhere in Oregon. It's because it's just too hard to do. And I was talking to a guy that does a lot of housing for a company, they do stuff all over the country and they do apartment buildings and stuff. And they work with investors and they put out 4 or 5 to their group of investors and saying, here's the projects we have. Here's what you can invest in. Here's the pro formas, all this sort of stuff. Anything that has Oregon on it, they literally throw it in the trash.
Hmm.
They'll invest in Washington. They'll even invest in California before they even
Fascinating.
invest in Oregon. But for the most part, they want nothing to do with the West Coast, but especially Oregon. And then but that's really tied to rent control and then all the other things, right? The cost of building. At the end of the day, there's no reason to invest and they think they can just do a couple things and throw a prosperity czar or whatever, whoever she hires, which is just stupid. Like, I'm going to put another council together. Like, what's the Oregon Business Council for if you're going to put a prosperity council together? Like, that doesn't make any sense either. Like, you already have a council. Like,
You don't need another set of advisors. We don't need another
no.
task force. That just go through all of the presentation businesses have given in the different business committees over the last 2 decades, and you can find 200 different things to do.
Yeah.
It's just they don't want to do any of them. They're like, no, bring us a new thing we can do that nobody opposes, and it's
You
like
know what
that
she
doesn't
should have done?
exist.
Yeah. What I would do if I was running for governor, I would say, I'm gonna go to the legislature and I'm gonna put in a bill in short session. And I'm gonna require that I have the same supersiding authority that we gave the governor in regards to the ability to supersite a new
Semiconductor.
a semiconductor thing, and I'm gonna have that with permits. I have the ability to approve any and all permits in industrial land across the entire state of Oregon. If they come on my desk, I can approve them.
Hmm.
Like talk
Just
about like if you want real power, like
oh
say
shit.
this is going to move the needle. I'm not going to allow the city of Portland to take 12 months to go through a permit. Like no. If I will have the authority if it's not done, it's not approved in 30 days or 14 days or because the University of Oregon talked about that when they were there. They said they went over to North Carolina and talked about these innovation hubs because they were doing. It was actually kind of neat thing. OSU and U of O are trying to work together with Corvallis and Eugene, and they're trying to say, hey, don't invest in Portland. Why don't you head on down the valley a little bit and come to Albany and Eugene? And they kind of want this kind of golden, kind of mid Willamette Valley kind of thing. And what they found out over in North Carolina is that's what the governor has the ability. Like they will approve permits in hours, if not days,
Yeah, because
not months and years.
everybody knows that except for like I don't know what kind of businesses people. I mean, the problem is that Oregon, there's a very strong contingent of like just people who are anti-corporation. Like as soon
Yeah,
as you file corporation paperwork, you're the enemy. It doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter what your business is. Anything that is for profit is bad, and they somehow think, well, nonprofits don't make profit. Oh, they're swimming in cash, or at least they are when it's government money. So
I think
they just can't
those are
distribute it to shareholders.
those are the same people that I think we referred to them as boomer hippies. Because they're anti everything, Reagan. They're anti, and I think you hit it on the
Right.
head. Like they're anti everything. They're anti
Yeah.
housing. They're anti corporations. They're anti roads. They don't want. They're the chief NIMBYs among us. They don't want anything to change. They want the world to just be stagnant.
And and they have to understand that if a community stands still, it starts dying.
Yep.
The minute a community stops growing. Now, the growth doesn't have to be crazy amounts of growth, but the minute you say we don't want any more people, we don't want any more businesses, we don't want any more tourists, that community starts dying.
Yeah.
And now some of it is preordained based on how far away you are from everything else and what your transportation situation is and what your weather is like. And so some of these communities they are just are what they are. And they are kind of frozen, but most of these communities we have, until they end freedom to travel, between states and cities
Yeah. Right.
and put up walls and mandate that everybody has to stay there at gunpoint like they do in the communist countries, people will leave to find a better place, a place where they can earn more, a place where everything costs them less. And so if you're not building housing, I think people want to build housing and they're like, okay, if we have 10,000 people, then we just want to build 10,000 houses and that's it. That's not how the housing market works. That's not how a
No.
market works. When you go to the store and there's more goods than there are people that need to buy them, that's good. That's positive, right? And when you try to go into a housing market that has exactly the number of available houses as exactly you have a market that's not functional because people have to switch between houses and move up and do all this different stuff, and so nobody can buy them at those prices, so prices are inflated. I just wish people understood more the supply and demand as it relates to housing and how that impacts so much of everything else, because all these other states, what they have in common is they can build houses. You can build
Yeah.
houses there. You can build large subdivisions. You can build, and these are, I mean, they're not, what do they say, McMansions. They are pretty compact subdivisions because compact subdivisions also maximize profit for the developers
Yeah.
too. The more land they put into a yard, the less money they make ultimately.
No, and
So they
those
try to,
cities plan for it. They put in parks, they put in elementary schools, they plan for all that sort of stuff. We just
yeah.
don't want anybody to build anything.
Yeah, no, that's 100% right. So, and I don't know how to change that mindset. I'm not sure what needs to happen to change that mindset. Probably 20 years of a really awful economy, I guess. I guess that's what it's going to take.
Yeah, because we've been so Democrats. I think what has happened is that Democrats have enjoyed the quiet enjoyment of population growth by just the fact of. And so then they've had budgets that reflected population growth because of. And I think that you've had also, I would say, mostly Senate Republicans over the years in the 2010s that have been able to, I think, kill a lot of the bad stuff.
Hmm.
And then I think And then, I think that's if you go back and look at or water down at least a lot of the
Yeah,
bad stuff. And the House Republicans have, tried their part, but they've, mostly you only got to move one vote in the Senate versus moving like seven votes in the House. It's just easier to do in
right.
the Senate, right? So I think you had a lot of those sort of things. And now what we found the last couple of years is the ramming through of some of these bills that are clearly union agendas, cashing in their checks, right, for votes on these bills that are creating more of this death spiral and then this homelessness strategy that has turned Portland into a shithole and a wasteland. Like Reagan, we were there for a couple days, and it's just a trash bin. Like it's just sad. And I grew up in Portland area, man. I mean, but it's just the trash bin. There's no pride. There's no nothing. We went to dinner Monday night after it was all said and done, and drove from the convention center and went to Ringside to go have dinner. Me and a couple lobbyists, Vicky McIntyre, a few folks, and went to Ringside. Shout out to Ringside, still going strong. Craig and Scott Peterson, good friends of my dad, known him forever. So glad to see Ringside. It was packed too. It was great. Going there, and my buddy Trip Dietrich, he's always got a table in there. So we met Trip and then had dinner. But we're going up Burnside, and you'll love this. So, and Emily, Representative McIntyre, we'll keep it formal. She looks over to the right, and she's like, "Oh my God, that guy is doing crack right there." Like
Oh,
literally on the sidewalk, you could see the crack pipe and the guy's smoking crack with like two or three people, and it's just trash. Like there's just piles of trash, and you're just like, wow. Like you're just hit with this wow.
hmm
Like this nothing is fixed. There's nothing, this whole nothing to see here is just a bunch of malarkey. And we'll move on to candidates here in a second, but I got to bring this up on the Oregon business thing. Wyden and Merkley came out together for they started the thing, right? The first 15 minutes. In 15 minutes, they blamed Donald Trump 7 different times. It was like the tariffs are destroying business. I have not heard a business say tariffs are destroying my business at all. But
no,
it was like ding, 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 Trump, 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 Trump. And it was just luckily when the state legislative people, so Majority Leader Jama came out and Majority Leader Bowman, and they actually had a pretty good one with Lucetta Elmer, who's a minority leader in the House, and then Bruce Starr in the Senate. They actually had a pretty good conversation, I thought. Didn't blame Trump once, which was nice. But Wyden and
because you
Merkley,
can't
they
blame
cannot
Donald
see
Trump for
past
state
Trump.
policy.
Yeah, and Wyden and Merkley can't see past Trump. Like everything is Trump's fault. So anyway,
Yeah. And I think, I mean, at the federal level where you're always dealing with Trump and you're in the minority, you almost expect that in a lot of ways, just because what else are they supposed to say, right? Wyden and Merkley can't do
I
anything.
know.
They're in the super minority and they're not willing to work across the aisle on the big issues, right? For the state level, I do appreciate that they're not just blaming Trump because I think, I mean, you can see obviously some downstream effects of congressional policy, but at the end of the day, a state needs to be in control of its own destiny. And how many times did Republicans say that we are overspending where we're at, that there was going to be a reckoning? I mean,
Yeah.
I personally, I'm a lot, I'm a lot younger than my dad and Senator McClain, but I heard them talk a lot about we're taking in too much federal money, we're too reliant on federal money, and someday there's going to be a correction, and we're not ready for it, even with the rainy day funds and the education stability funds and all that. And that given a long enough time frame, they were right, and they were. McClain was talking about that when he was a House Republican leader, and so these things have been brought forward. It's just that politicians are always worried about what's right in front of them with 2 years, and I think that's why you can kill more of this stuff in the Senate is because they have a whole
Yeah.
nother session to get away from some of the hard votes. So in their first session of
Mm,
the two big long sessions they can take some hard votes, and then they just got to rein it in. You saw that with Meek, right? His first session in 20, was it 23? That was his first one. He was a little
yeah.
better. And
Yeah.
then in 25, he did have to vote for one of the big bads. He watered it down and then had to vote for it just to make sure he can run again, right, and not get primaried or whatever it is they're worried about. But I think it's mostly primaries.
No, he needs funding from the
Hmm.
union. So
And and one of the folks like Gorsuch, he was right there in well, oh wait, Gorsuch was up in 22, wasn't he?
no, 24, he just won.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So he was coming up, and that's why he didn't vote for the housing bill that was in the Senate. That's because
Yeah.
he was worried about his reelection was right in front of him. And so I think somebody should show these incumbents the numbers about how often incumbents lose, which is like almost never. They just
Yeah.
almost never lose. Like you can vote for this stuff if you want to do the
Totally.
right thing, just vote for the right thing and do it
Yeah.
and make these because it's so hard to pull off a primary against an incumbent. It's so rare. You have to be way out of step with your party in order to get beaten
Yeah.
one of those things.
All they have to do is just do, we could call it the Holvey, right? The
Right?
Holvey.
Exactly.
Because he told the unions, right? Savaggio and those guys with it was the grocers union.
Yeah.
Yeah. That
Yeah.
primaried him. And he said, screw you guys. I'm going to destroy you. And he did 90-10. Remember that? It was like,
It
and then
wasn't
he
even a
retired. It was so
partisan
great. He beat the recall. And then he just goes, Mike
mic
drop,
drop.
screw off. I'm going to
And
retire.
that wasn't even on a partisan issue. That was an inter-party fight about what
Yeah.
is the law. And LC said this is the law, and Holvey went, I think LC's right, and that's what I'm
Yeah.
going with. And they did, and voters they didn't care about that kind of petty squabble stuff. They trusted. So if you're a legislator now, if you haven't put in the work, build the trust in your community, yeah, you can lose. But if you just do the work, then you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
And I think being afraid of primaries is what causes people to take bad votes on both sides. Republicans will take bad votes because they're afraid of primaries. Democrats take bad votes because they're afraid of primaries. And I just wish that they knew. That's why it's so important to have a leader that has your back
Yeah.
as your caucus member. Is because like that is you're going to need them obviously, but also a lot of your voters are going to have your back too. We just need to teach politicians to have courage. I guess I don't know. That seems impossible too. So I don't know.
They really, a lot of them, and I won't say because some do lack a lot of them have some good courage, but a lot of them, it's the pressure you do get from leadership is pretty intense.
Yeah.
With some of those big bills, because those leaders are getting a lot of intense pressure from the outside
Sure.
groups, right? And because they're responsible for funding races and making things happen, so it's a weird cycle. It's a weird business to be part of, this political business, but
Hmm.
it can be fun too. But I think people respect courage on a vote. They respect bucking the trend a little bit.
Totally.
What they don't respect is just switching parties and telling
No.
the party to screw off, right? And I think that's where Javity is ultimately going to be a failure. Is I don't believe anybody will respect that move, and I think that's where he's gonna that's gonna be a fatal flaw for him.
Yeah.
So is because I don't think he respects voters.
No, it's pretty clear. I mean, you can go back. I just went back and he endorsed Kotek for reelection. And so I just went back and he hasn't even deleted the posts where he was supporting Drazen on his
Yeah, I
face. You
know.
can literally go back. You can go back 4 years ago and see him. So like, it's that kind of thing where it's like, that just doesn't make sense. There's no rationale behind it. There's a version of the party switching where he was like, look, the Republican Party left me and I'm still anti-tax, I'm still pro-business, I'm still pro-gun and stuff like that. I just don't like what they're focusing on right now. I think voters might have respected that. I think it still would have been tough sledding, but at least it would have seemed
Yeah.
more consistent. But he's just gone full send. I'm a Democrat. I'm going to explain why Republicans are wrong all the time. I mean, half of his posts on Facebook are explaining how great the transportation package is, when it's pretty clear that the 90 oppose, the 10% support in submitted testimony isn't just a manufactured astroturf thing. That's like pretty close to the actual opinion
Yeah.
of Oregonians and where they're at on this thing. So ultimately, it's like you got to respect voters and you got to respect them enough to tell them the truth, tell them when you disagree with them and why. And a lot of times that's enough. But telling them they're stupid, telling them that if you believe the Republicans, you're dumb. That's not going to work. Never seen that work.
I don't think so either. I'm with you. I think that hopefully that'll happen. Hey, speaking of the gas tax, so sounds like they wrapped everything up and they're turning in signatures on Friday, December 12th.
I mean,
That's pretty awesome.
I want to see how fast the Democrats introduce the repeal on the gas tax in this short session because
Yeah.
I think that it's going to be it's a hard sell for them to actually let that go to the ballot. They kind of need to take the L on this one, and if they don't, they're just hanging folks out to dry. Honestly, I mean, Democrats want Javier to get reelected, obviously. So if they want him to get reelected, man, they can't let that go to the ballot because he for sure is toast unless everybody takes the L on this thing. But I
Oh
don't know.
man, I sure hope
They're
they don't.
I hope they don't either, but it would be the right policy to repeal
Yeah.
it and just say, look, we get it. It can't go into effect until after the election anyway. So how do you budget? That's the part I don't know is how do you budget this thing?
Well, because it's frozen, so yeah, it freezes the dollars and or it
Yep.
freezes the increase once they get enough
Yes.
signatures and the Secretary of State certifies that they got enough signatures, then it
Yep.
freezes it until there's a vote. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's going to be pretty wild, I think. And you're right, they have to just take the L. I hope they don't. I hope they like double down.
No, they should absolutely double down. I don't misunderstand me.
Yeah,
Whoever is in charge on the Democrat side, I don't even know anymore. I guess we're speaking to the interest groups. Don't take the L. You guys are right. I believe in SEIU's ability to muscle this through, spend 10, 20, 30, $50 million, whatever it takes to
please.
get this
Yes.
gas tax passed to fill your budget hole for 2 years. I mean, frankly, that's a worthwhile investment. I mean, shoot, some of the money they would raise in that statewide, they could just pay it for it
Yeah.
themselves. Uh,
We'll have
yeah,
more discussion on this. I'm sure we'll definitely at some point we'll have Senator Starr on or Ed Deal to kind of talk about what's next. But we'll kind of wait and see kind of what happens with it. But I think it's a good. You talked about it a lot, and I've talked to a lot of people about it, and it's like it's really pretty amazing how you look at our state and you say how we're such a fiscally conservative state, yet such a libertarian, socially
hmm
driven state, just macroly driving kind of state that way, and you really start to think about the policies that Oregonians really get behind, and it sure feels like it's way more that way more rings true of that's kind of the culture of our state. So it's pretty interesting. All right, governor's race. I'll put a map in the chat, but I tweeted this and I wanted to bring it up to you because I really think there was a new map that kind of came out and it comes out from the Center for Politics and they take into account polling across the world and all that sort of stuff and they basically say what safe are, what leans are, what's likely R, what's likely D, all that sort of stuff in the governor's race. And it's so funny because even Dirk called me yesterday like, hey, what are you hearing about Dudley? Is he running? Is he not running? Because people love to talk about the governor's race in Oregon. The media loves to talk about it. It because it does set the tone, right? I mean, whoever the governor is literally like the political tone of the state, right? They have the bully
right.
pulpit. So I get that part. The part that I question is that we're so far down the list of who gives a shit that I just besides us that live here, but if you think nationally, it doesn't matter. So the reality is like the true toss-up ones that kind of leans are is like Kansas,
Right.
surprisingly, is like number one on a state that there's going to be a ton of money spent.
I think they had a two-term Democrat governor, but she's termed out now, and so
Yeah,
that's why they
yeah,
think she was able to break the mold there in Kansas and win. But they are questioning whether another Democrat can. I think that's right.
yeah.
Um,
And then,
Nevada,
yeah,
right?
Nevada. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, Nevada is lean R, which is just crazy. I mean, that just tells you everything I've seen, and I only really follow him on Twitter, but everything I've seen from Lombardo is just so good. I mean, that guy
Yeah.
he's focused on the right issues. He vetoed all the knucklehead stuff out of the legislature. It looks like he sustained all those vetoes. I mean, the guy's just awesome, and he's being rewarded by being ahead in Nevada, which is crazy this early on. I think normally he'd be lucky to be in a toss up. So that's frankly really impressive. Arizona governor is going to be interesting. Brian, you spent some time in Arizona. What's your insight on that one?
Yeah, that one is it's an odd thing because Trump won Arizona by a pretty decent margin,
Well,
and they have a supermajority in the Senate down there for Republicans, but they call it so it's Hobbs, is gonna she's up for re-election, and of course she beat Carrie Lake, who, is just I put her in the batshit crazy world. She's fine, but she's so focused on election integrity and all the weird stuff that she just got killed in the governor's election. Hobbs has done a decent job as governor. I feel like she's leaning in too far to the left with stuff. So I I think that's you put that in the chat. You got to say it. It's so funny.
I listen. I don't know what it is, and I don't know how to explain it. And it just, I know it's going to sound wrong, but there's something about the women that keep the really short hair. I don't know what it is that causes them to just be a little bit different, maybe a little too different. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but
It's a
ultimately,
red
yes,
flag,
Carrie
isn't
Lake,
it?
Carrie Lake, a really, really, she had the potential to be such a good candidate. And I think she just picked all the wrong issues to talk about
Yeah.
and focus on. And I don't know how that happens, but you see that sometimes where you just like, you'll meet with these. I mean, you've done this probably a million times, Brian, where you sit down with a candidate, you have a great lunch, you talk about things, and all they're talking about is the right issues. And then they launch their campaign and everybody's excited. And then just like first opportunity they have to say anything, it's just like pure stupidity. And you're like, where did that come from? And I have to imagine it's not the haircut, it's the bad advice. But it just seems like there's a predisposition there that people don't quite understand. So
Yeah.
whatever it is,
I think it's so right there. I think Carrie Lake is yeah. There you make a really good point there. We have to go back and maybe you might have to back it up, and we have to go find all the women with short hair and just find out if they were crazy. I think Andy Biggs he's a congressman, and David
he seems,
Schweikert are the two
yeah,
congressmen, but they're going up against, Karen Taylor Robeson, who's a billionaire,
right.
who lost to Kerry Lake in the primary last time. So you got some crazy dynamics, right?
And
And
Trump's kind of behind everybody. He's not endorsing one candidate. He did originally endorse Robeson and then also endorsed Biggs because Biggs was a pro-Trump Republican.
yeah,
Now, I saw a poll early on in the this was like summer. Carolyn Taylor Robeson had a lead from her side, and that was basically her side's polling. And then I think the Biggs team got some of their polling kind of late fall, and it showed 50% of voters supporting Biggs, with Robeson getting 17%. So I don't even think we know what this primary
uh,
looks like. I think there's a lot of time. I think right now they're just all doing Oppo research out the wazoo on each other, trying to find the thing that sticks the most. They'll probably all have ads saying how they support Trump and their opponents are anti-Trump. They'll probably all have ads about I oppose taxes and my opponents love taxes. So it'll be interesting to see how
yeah.
this one goes. But Republicans really need to win back that governor's race because they have a legislature that wants to do great stuff, and Katie Hobbs wants none of it.
It's so true. I think, and Andy Biggs, the latest I saw that he was kind of the front runner because he got Charlie Kirk's late endorsement
Oh,
before
wow.
Charlie was shot and killed. He
If
got
they have that
Charlie.
on video and play it, I think that's probably enough to win the primary, quite
Yeah,
honestly, in
I
Arizona.
would think I would give Biggs as the odds-on favorite at this point uh, to win that primary, and then I think he's also him and Robeson are kind of neck and neck with, like you said, with the survey stuff. So I was on the phone earlier today with somebody down in Arizona. So when I'm down there next month, I'll be hopefully meeting with a couple of those people. I'd love to get involved in a governor's race in Arizona because I feel like it's more winnable. It'd be more fun to do. Where so then next, right? So you said so we spent a bunch of money in Kansas. They got to spend money in Nevada. The RGA does. They
For
keep
sure.
Lombardo there. Iowa as well. We got to spend a bunch of money. It leans are, but they're gonna have to spend money. Ohio should be fine. Like, I know how much you love what's his face in Ohio is running for
Great,
governor.
great new poll showing him down 2 points. I don't know who did the poll, but I just saw it. The Republicans up in the U.S. Senate race, and he's down. So I don't know what Vivek is doing up there. Hopefully, he gets his act together here soon because losing that race would, I would think, would probably end his political career. If you lose
Yeah.
Ohio, even in a Democratic leaning
He does come
midterm,
off as a car salesman though, right? I mean, there's something about his messaging that
yeah,
just doesn't, it's too polished, it
it's
feels
too
like.
clean. That's
Yeah.
100%. He always has the exact right answer, and it starts to weird you out after a little bit.
Yeah,
So we'll
I'm kind of
see.
with you. And then the other one that we're going to have to spend a shit ton of money in is Georgia, right? So hopefully Ohio is fine, right? But it should be fine. But then
Yeah.
we go spend, and you're talking millions. So you spend 20 million in those five states alone, and we haven't even
Well,
talked about
it'll be double
Wisconsin
that.
or Wisconsin and Michigan. So, which are huge toss-ups. You got huge legislatures that are truly split. So those guys are going to command 20, 30 million dollars. And those races are just going to be insane. And then, so that's what, 10 races. So you got, at least a half a billion probably spent in those races. And then you get into the lean D stuff, which with all the crap happening in Minnesota with all of the food fraud stuff and everything, and Tim Walz is just a train wreck. I mean, he's trying to give Governor Kotek a run for her money to run
Walls
on
is
him.
so lucky that his election takes place in what is might be a Democratic leaning year. Because if he was up in a Republican leaning year, he's
Yeah,
toast.
yeah,
So he's the only reason he has a fighting shot right now, I think, is because this could be a Democrat leaning midterm, and if that doesn't happen, he's in some huge trouble.
yeah,
So yeah, and then even Alaska it looks like could be. I think it's basically dependent on if Mary Peltola runs, the
yeah.
former congresswoman, if she runs for governor, for U.S. senator, for nothing, that'll kind of determine how that state goes. But yeah,
Yep.
and then we already did Virginia and New Jersey, right? So
Yeah.
I do have a hard time. And typically you see this,
Maine.
you'll see the RGA, they'll come in. This is a great example. 2010, RGA very heavily involved in Oregon. Okay. They barely lost. 2014, not involved in the Richardson race. 2016, they weren't terribly involved in the Bud Pierce race. 2018, they were heavily involved in Bueller. Okay. And then only because the 2022 was supposed to be a good year for Republicans and the polling was strong all the way up until the end did they get involved in a back-to-back cycle. So normally their system is to take a cycle off from Oregon, especially from basically from the long shot states, right? Because you have good cycle, bad cycle, good cycle. Typically, it kind of swings back and forth like a little pendulum. And so they are poised, I think, to take a cycle off in Oregon, unfortunately. So that's where whoever the nominee is, if there's a chance to win, it's going to have to be backfilled more local by folks like Phil Knight and others.
Yeah.
They'll have to fill that hole because I just don't think even if RGA wants to play, they've got too many other important swing states that they have to pay attention to that have way bigger down ballot implications than Oregon does because we don't have any majorities in our legislature. We only have one congressman, and our U.S. senators aren't flippable either. So there's no down ballot value. There's down ballot value for them in Nevada, in Arizona, in Iowa, in Georgia, in Michigan, in Wisconsin, in Minnesota, in Ohio. All these states are bigger. All these states are
Pennsylvania has
matter.
down,
I
even
mean,
Pennsylvania has down
Pennsylvania,
ballot value,
and they had the worst Republican candidate of all time. I mean, I know Josh Shapiro's a pretty good, solid
Yeah.
Democrat, but like he benefited a lot from having a terrible Republican opponent that
Yeah.
Republicans sounded the alarm about.
Dr. Oz?
Just
Oh,
couldn't.
no, he ran
No,
for
it was
Senate.
Doug Mastriano,
Mastriano. Yeah,
and
he was so bad.
he was worse than Oz, honestly. And so they need a Dave McCormick style guy to run in
Yeah.
that to actually make Pennsylvania look like a swing state again. A lot of it's just perception. It's not even the numbers.
Yeah, it's crazy. No, I'm with you. So it's tough for us, in Oregon, but I think it'll be fun to watch how the maps kind of play out as we get in near the end of first quarter and all that sort of stuff to
Yeah.
really, really see how these governor races stack up. But right now, I give us maybe 13th likely, like in the who gives a shit meter. Maybe that's what we should call it on the candidate on the
And
tracker.
on the RGA, they have a darkest of dark horses,
Yeah.
and Oregon is on that list. The darkest of dark
Yeah.
horses.
Us and New Mexico, I think, are probably in the same
Yeah, I don't
vein
know anything
based on.
about the New Mexico race and who might be running, but Yes, similar makeups, I think.
Yeah. No, and they don't. And New Mexico, they always get out of the border stuff because they have such a small border. I
Oh,
never really knew that. I looked into it and I didn't realize like how small of a border they have in New Mexico or with Mexico. And that border is so horrible, like as far as the traverse it and stuff, that they don't really have to do much to protect it because you just
oh,
can't physically get over the border there into Mexico. There's only a couple spots where you even have to worry about it. So I always found so
okay.
they've never really been in the fray. It's always been Texas,
Huh.
Arizona, California. So
Yeah.
all right, well, legislative races. Jeff Golden officially filed,
Uh-huh.
and then of course he has a primary opponent, so that should be interesting. I think that he probably still wins the primary. I gave us if that was an open seat, I gave our shot down there in the Senate a 50-50.
Yeah.
With Golden in the race, I think that probably hobbles us back to about a 25% shot of winning that seat. So it makes me kind of bummed a little bit. However, I think that Golden, he'll come into it with a lot of baggage, but I'm pretty positive his announcement to seek reelection came on the heels of the Senate Democrat poll.
Well, so I want to talk about that because I was thinking about that because I said something. I think I sent a text message being like, "Oh, Democrats did their poll down there and figured out." But I was thinking about that more. Doing that poll is just a self-fulfilling prophecy. There's no other
Yeah.
Democrat that is the current senator from there. Of course, the current senator is going to poll the best. No other candidate is going to have the name ID. Doesn't mean they can't build it, but this is why incumbents do so well. Is it's like, well, you just do the polling and be like, well, obviously the incumbent is the best candidate. Yeah, because they're the one that ran last and did all the campaign and had all the signs and their name was on the ballot. They have the name ID. Any other
Yeah.
candidate, it's not going to have the name ID until they go build it. And I think that like if you do a poll and then the result of that poll is Jeff Golden is the best candidate, that is the obvious thing that the polling is telling you based on, but you don't have any other data points. You don't get to test anybody else. Anybody else you test is going to have 2% name ID and Golden's going to be at 35% or whatever the incumbent is going to be. So they may have just signed themselves up for, because they had to go bail him out last time. That was the thing
Yeah.
is Golden doesn't really campaign. He doesn't raise money. He's anti raising spending money. So Senate Democrats will have to do that again. They're hoping to have the wind at their back in that midterm. This really makes me wish that Brad Hicks had run 4 years ago because I think that race would have been a 50 vote race, right?
Yeah.
We may not have won it, but have been so much closer. And so, but I think that this is why we need national Republicans to get their act together and change things up because we can't, without the wind at our back, we probably can't win this seat, or at least not in most of the scenarios. So we need some help on this one. Brad's
Unless
a good candidate, though.
I mean, unless there's a yes, Brad's known down there. I don't know. I mean, I think maybe they did even if they did generic RD. I mean, Trump lost that Senate seat by 9,000 votes.
Right now, your poll right there would show generic D plus 10 or something crazy like
Yeah,
that. I mean, this is not. If the election were held today, we'd be screwed. So
yeah.
we
A
need
poll
real
in
turnout.
November doesn't really give you a whole bunch. I mean, it really doesn't. So I
Not a
think
year, not a year out.
no, I wouldn't even poll that race until July, maybe.
Yep.
Like I don't even know because it's just not going to matter, right? So I would just wait and just keep raising money and because Golden does have you have to eventually test how do people care about because they are his wildfire maps, gas
Hmm.
tax, some of the other stuff that you could really kind of push against him, because the same thing would happen against a Mark Meek or what have you, and so we'll see. That's definitely the Senate seat to watch. I think that's shaping up to be one of the big barn burners because and then I think on the Republican side, our barn burner to watch is going to be Tracy Kramer,
Yeah.
the
Kaiser.
Democrat, and that Kaiser up to Woodburn thing. How does ICE play into things? How does the gas tax play into things? How does like the economy play into things? Trump midterm, bunch of stuff there. You would say we got a good candidate. The Democrats would say think they got a good candidate with Teresa Alonso Leon.
Or
Entering the
Virginia
race.
Stapleton. Don't count out the Demobrat and her podcast. of 25 listeners. We have at least twice as many as
I
she
hope.
does.
Yeah, I know, right? I think we're killing her. I hope so. If we're losing to her, Reagan, let's just quit.
There's
Virginia
no way.
Stapleton, I hope she wins the primary, but I sadly don't think that's going to happen. So those are I think the two real bar burners for us are outside shot is Mark Meek and his gas tax, versus Michelle Stroh.
Hmm.
Meek he tries to play really nice with the business community and court them so they don't spend too much money, given to his opponent. So, and then outside shots, right, are basically the next on the list for the Senate is just Salem, which is Patterson's seat. And, Raquel Moore Green in 22 in an up year, we did our best and we came 3 points, 4 points short of that one. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if we'll have the money to challenge in that race, but compared to what the Democrats have. But in the House, what's really seems, and we'll just hit a couple of these, and we'll, as we get closer to first of the year, hopefully more people. First off, the map looks pretty damn boring, Reagan. I mean, the
Yeah.
Javity race is clearly going to be a fun one to watch.
Yep.
And then it looks like maybe House
The
District
Republicans.
52 seems to
Yeah.
be where all the action is. You got, three
Yep.
Democrats have filed and only one Republican so far. The Republican that filed looks like not a Republican that I don't think the caucus wants running. I don't know him at all. I'm just making assumptions based on his profile. But it looks like the Democrats are definitely chopping their lips a little bit there as a potential pickup because of Jeff Helfrich leaving to go to the Senate. Assuming Drazen stays in the governor's race, which all things seem to be tilting that direction. That seems to be the barn burner race. I would imagine it puts Republicans at a little bit of a disadvantage because now they have to find a new candidate in an open seat that they won, spend a bunch of money there, as well as try to get back Javity's seat, as well as try to, go and fight on 22, all while probably trying to make sure Kevin Mannix in 21. But I don't know if the Democrats will worry too much about Kevin. I don't see that as a potential for them. I think they're looking at more open seats and possibly saving 32 and 22 on their minds. And I think Republicans are probably looking at, now they have to save 52 and they want to go after 32 and 22. So now you're looking at $3 million.
This
Two,
is a tough. The map falling this way is really tough for ours in this cycle, especially if it's a lean dem cycle, because you're already playing a lot of defense. And a lean dem cycle is just going to make it like you're playing more defense. It's not going to give you a lot of offensive opportunities. The problem was 2 years ago we had offensive opportunities and they just didn't, for whatever reason, didn't really materialize in a lot of these spaces. And so now you have incumbents who are perceived as being extra strong, even when maybe they aren't, just because of the way the 24 cycle broke. And so there isn't a lot of opportunity for offense for the R's, which means we probably won't put a lot of effort into trying to keep the Dems on their heels, which means we will spend the whole cycle playing defense, which isn't where you necessarily want to be. You want to have some offensive and some defensive to try to keep things even. And just playing all defense is going to be tough.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into the House stuff because I think the map in the House, the Senate map looks pretty, it's set, right? We kind of know where things are at. The House map it's pretty wild. And I think we should even have Drew Draper on and he can come talk to us about their map and what things look like. It'd be fun to have Drew on.
I'm texting him right now. Come on the pod.
Yeah, it'd be fun. I think did I just saw your cat jump in the background? That was wild.
No, that's my dog.
Oh, is that your dog?
Yes. He will literally go up to my eye
Yeah,
level.
I just saw that. It was so great.
I don't even understand how he does it, but I'm training him for the next Air Bud movie. I'm thinking that's my golden ticket. I think he would do well.
Yeah. Well, that's fun. Well, more to come on the governor's race, and then the House stuff would be fun to really get Drew's take, and we should, or invite Rep Elmer on too as well, and they can kind of chat a little bit about the way they're seeing things and what sort of issues or they think are going to transform things. Because a good governor's race can help people kind of forget about. Because because Trump isn't on the ballot, so there's some opportunity there when you get to state level, which I hope will be good for us. But a lot of work to be had, that's for sure. Well, more to
Absolutely.
come.
All right. Looking forward to it. It'll be kind of dead until after Christmas, but hopefully things will go well.
I'm hoping for we'll try to get one or two governor candidate interviews before the end of the year. I've been texting with Danielle Bethel, so she's wanting to come back on. So we'll chat with her and a few others. So go from there. All right, buddy.
Talk to you later, Brian.
See you, man.
Time to make a move. Can't afford to lose. Got the votes to prove what we're gonna do. We're dancing.